would like to begin our program with some very important information involving the original British mandate concerning Israel. While recently in Jerusalem, we had the wonderful opportunity to sit down with Jacob Vince, the Executive Director of CFI UK, where he shared the mandate's historical as well as current relevance.
Well, of course, the Balfour Declaration was made by Lord Balfour, who was the Foreign Secretary of our government in 1917, and it was made to the Zionist Federation that was represented at the time by Lord Rothschild. And that declaration basically said that we are in favour of the Jews re-establishing a homeland in fulfilment, actually, of one, partly the biblical prophecy, although that's not what they mentioned at that stage, but in terms of their historic connection with the land. So that's the Balfour Declaration. Now, obviously later on, at the same time that that happened, the British forces actually were able to take what was then called Palestine from the Turkish Ottoman Empire, who had occupied that land for 300 years. And that later then translated to different mandates. The French had the mandate for Syria and Lebanon, and the UK had the mandate effectively for Iraq and Palestine, part of which became Jordan, the larger part, about 78%. And then the mandate, which they then eventually were given, was for the smaller section of the land, the remaining 22%. It was a trust to give it as to enable the Jewish people to settle in that land. Now, you're asking about the Palestinians or the movement on behalf of the Palestinians to try and negate that. Well, if they negate that, then they also negate all the other Arab nations that were created at the same time, because it was all under Turkish Ottoman rule then, and that mandate became enshrined in the League of Nations legal framework, which gave the British the mandate, and that legal position was also translated then into the United Nations, which we have today, and of course the end vote in 47. I actually think that Israel, as a democracy where there's freedom of religion, freedom of the press, an independent judiciary, a democratic elected parliament, is almost like a beacon of light for the surrounding nations. And when we have what's called the Arab Spring or the Arab Uprising, it's possibly because they've seen something else which they would like. They've seen something working. Now, in terms of a challenge to us, I suppose that's not the picture that we see in the media in the UK. Some of it's ignorance. Then you've got those that have already made their minds up that they're going to support the Palestinians, which have been framed in a way as being the oppressed. And it's not that case, or if they are, you have to look at where that oppression comes from. There's a booklet which Open Doors, which is an independent organisation looking after the persecuted church in the world. That organisation has a prayer list of the top 50 countries where Christians are most persecuted, and Israel is not on that list. There are other countries in the surrounding area, as you can imagine. Syria has been moving up rapidly. Egypt has started to move up again. Jordan's on there. I mean, Iran and North Korea and some of these others, even Saudi Arabia, who, no one says hardly anything about, some of the top countries for persecuting Christians. The problem that they're having is not coming from Israel. There is some inconvenience. We appreciate that. There's inconvenience for Israelis. I mean, they can't go to Bethlehem, for example, or Hebron, as I used to do 30 years ago here. But the fact is that their problems are coming from often their own people, from those in government that perhaps are not doing all that they should do, and also, sadly, through the Islamic world. That hasn't helped either. I mean, the Palestinians, I think, are around about 98.5 to 99% Muslim. And that, when a country has that degree of Islam, it starts to affect the Christians. There's two ways you can do it. Either you compromise, or you go quiet, or you leave. And many Christians have left the Palestinian territories. Certainly from Gaza, they've almost become extinct. In Israel, the Christian population has grown.